Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the special meeting of the Board of Public Works for Friday, July 24th, 2020. Hello, ladies and gentlemen in our Zoom nation. How are y'all?
I see everyone waving.
Yeah, it's good to see everybody. All right, Dr. Campos.
Thank you, Mr. President. Fernando Campos, Executive Officer, Board of Public Works, establishing roll call and quorum. We have Commissioner Good, who is here present at City Hall in our chambers. We are also joined by Commissioner Caloza, Commissioner Garcia, Commissioner Villegas, that are dialing in remotely from their home. And then we're also joined by Commissioner Davis, who is joining us remotely from his office here at City Hall. We're also joined by our General Counsel, Mr. Ted Jordan, who is dialing in remotely from home. Myself, I am here at City Hall in Chambers with President Good. President Good, at this time, you do have a quorum. President Good, we also have one caller on the line from General Public Comments. We do not have any commentary at this time under the Neighborhood Council Commentary section. We did receive speaker cards on items number 2 and 3. We do have one caller for each of the items. In addition to that, we'd received one Google form commentary on item number 2 that has been distributed to all commissioners. For item number 3, we also received a Google form public comment that has been distributed to all commissioners. In addition to that, we did receive 3 emails that have been distributed to all commissioners as well.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Campos. Why don't we go ahead and start with our general public comment.
Absolutely. We have Mr. Juan Ashton. Mr. Ashton, your microphone has been unmuted at this time. You will be given 2 minutes under general public comment.
Welcome, Mr. Ashton.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, honorable commissioners. Today, the reason for calling, I'm a resident of CD14 concerned about prompt and efficient emergency service when our community members and urban forests need it most. A mature tree was cut down right outside where I live today. 2 mature trees in the public right-of-way pruned back, and the work was so disturbing, tree branches falling so close to my window and sawdust filling up the air in my room. I'm still in shock as I speak to you now. As the Sustainability Director for Eagle Rock Neighborhood Council, I've heard firsthand from members of the community concerned about mature trees in the city being removed or pruned without permits or proper studies. I've heard that some property owners feel entitled to do work in the public right-of-way without first getting permission from the city. Of course, I felt inclined to confirm with the Urban Forestry Division to see if this was the case with the pruning taking place in the public right-of-way outside where I live. And in response, I was told to contact an area supervisor. The trouble is, for Eagle Rock, the area supervisor for the Urban Forestry Division is only available from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. and 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. How is it that the city agency responsible for protecting our urban forests from unauthorized tree removals or pruning has such limited availability to do so? Clearly, for a city as large as Los Angeles, there is something wrong with that. As a concerned resident and public official serving my neighborhood, I must object to any tree removal or pruning that is A, unpermitted, and B, has not been rigorously studied by Streets LA arborists prior to being completed. Thank you for your time. I would appreciate a response back from this to my email, juan.ashton@ernc.la. Thank you again.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ashton. I will confess we still have audible issues, so I believe I gathered the primary gist of that, and we'll follow up, because that's certainly a matter of concern.
And Mr. President, we do have a representative here from the Urban Forest Division, Mr. Tim Tyson, that's on the line with Zoom, so I'm sure he probably captured the email address.
I actually, he went kind of quick. I almost got the email address, but what also would help would be the address where this took place would really be helpful as well.
Are you still there, Mr. Ashton?
Mr. Jordan, since this is public comment, could the board interact with Mr. Ashton? He's still on the line.
Well, it sounds like staff was not able to capture the information, so
okay.
If Mr. Ashton...
Mr. Ashton, your microphone...
What his email address is, so that would be fine.
Mr. Ashton, your microphone has been unmuted at this time. Can you please repeat your email address for us?
Yes, it is Juan, Juan, .Ashton, ASHTON, at ERNC.LA.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ashton. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Mr. President. We'll go ahead and close public comment at this time.
Great. Okay. That takes us to our first item of business. Item number 1, the approval of the minutes for the meeting of Tuesday, July 14th, 2020. Is there a second to my motion to approve the meeting minutes?
Second.
Thank you, Vice President Garcia. Any objections? Commissioner Colosa?
No objections, thank you.
Commissioner Villegas?
No objections, thank you.
Thank you. Any objections, Commissioner Davis?
None.
All right. Hearing no objections, those minutes have been approved. Thank you, colleagues. All right, this takes us to item number 2 in Council District 14. Recommending the board, 1, authorize the city engineer to issue the task to Kleinfelder Incorporated from the pre-qualified on-call bridge civil engineering and other design and supportive services consultants list to provide design support services for the Soto Street widening from Multnomah Street to Mission Road project, as stated in task order solicitation number 43A, with a budgetary authority of $2,113,227, including contingency. Our representative today is Shirley Lau. Shirley, why don't we start with your presentation, and I know we have a caller for public comment afterwards, but maybe some of your questions may be answered. Some of the callers' questions might be answered by your presentation. We'll go there.
Yes, thank you, President Good. Good afternoon, Shirley Lau with the Bureau of Engineering, Bridge Improvement Division. I'll go ahead and start off with some background on this project. This project is located in the northeast part of the city along Soto Street between Multnomah Street and Mission Road. Soto serves as a major corridor connecting other cities to the communities of Lincoln Heights, Boyle Heights, and El Sereno. We had traffic analysis performed, and it showed capacity issues going southbound. It's currently inadequate with only one traffic lane. And there's also a large hillside on the east side of the roadway, which needs to be retained. The project proposes to widen the existing roadway to increase capacity so it allows for 2 traffic lanes in each direction, proposed protected bike lanes, striped median, widened sidewalks. We also have green street elements and a retaining wall system with architectural features. This project will also require approximately 20 feet of additional right-of-way for 13 parcels along the east side of Soto to accommodate the improvements. The project's current status is that we have 65% plans, specs, and estimates, and the environmental document, which was a mitigated negative declaration under CEQA, was adopted by City Council in June of 2019. So during the environmental process, BOE collaborated with Council District 14 and held several community meetings, and the community and Council District 14 were very supportive of this project. This project is awarded $9.3 million in funding through Metro's call for projects, and subsequently we received $26.3 million in additional funding from the State Route 710 Mobility Improvement Project, which is also administered through Metro. This board report before you is to request authorization to issue a task to Kleinfelder, who will continue the project through the remainder of the design phase. The reason that we needed to solicit this task is that the previous pre-qualified on-call consultants contracts expired. So a new one was established in November 2019. BOE sent out this solicitation to all 30 firms on the new pre-qualified on-call list and received 2 firms responding. BOE staff reviewed the proposals and interviewed both firms. Kleinfelder's proposal and presentation during their interview demonstrated their qualifications and a seamless coordination on the various disciplines that this project requires. BOE has reviewed and negotiated their proposal, which is in the amount of $1,921,115.81. So with the contingency added, we are requesting total budget authority of $2,113,227 for this task. Since this project is federally funded, the city will follow the U.S. Department of Transportation's requirements for the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise, DBE program, which includes women business enterprises, minority business enterprises, small business enterprises, and other socially and economically disadvantaged groups. The city set a goal of 8%. However, Kleinfelder is pledging 54.81% for this task. The previous firm that performed work on this project pledged 37%, so we are happy to report an increase of DPE usage for the remaining work on this project. This project has no impact on the general fund. We will use the Transportation Grant Fund as front funding and be reimbursed by Metro. I guess I'll just end with, we request the board to approve the recommendations set forth in the report, and that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have or future questions that the public comment may ask. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lau. Why don't we go ahead and we have one speaker for this, or one public or comment, public speaker for this item. Let's go ahead and hear from, I believe it's Dr. Tom Williams.
Absolutely, Mr.
Hello, this is Dr. Tom Williams.
Go ahead, you have 2
Hello?
minutes.
Yeah, okay. In some ways, we're just trying to figure out what's going on. We had participated in last year's meetings, but have received no further comments as to information as to when's it going to start, when's it going to be finished with the design, and when is construction to be completed. So those general things. Specifically, we're quite concerned regarding, we spent a lot of time last year regarding paleontological and geological resources, and there may also be some cultural resources, and these were not, I say, clarified as to what will be done as far as mitigation monitoring and reporting under CEQA for the construction. We're also quite concerned regarding the federal and Measure R funding for both from phase 1 and phase 2. I started on the SR 710 in 1992, so I have some background in what's going on there, but we don't know where the money's going for Measure R funds for SR 710 North Extension. So we were trying to find out about that. Then we're trying to develop with Ascot Park and a few others as to how to render the exposed retaining walls, because there's a lot of good geological structure in that particular area, and if you're going to cut it back 20 feet, there's going to be a lot of fossils, maybe a few whales, lots of clams, shellfish and such. So we're quite concerned regarding using the geological structure as part of the rendering rather than what's shown in the current documents. And we discussed this all last year, and somebody actually said that's a good idea. So we're quite concerned regarding the rendering of the exposed concrete and the recovery of any fossils that are encountered during the construction. But we don't know when construction begins.
Please wrap up, Mr. Williams. It's been 2 minutes.
Thank you, Dr. Williams.
President Good, I'll answer. I'll try to compose my answer to address what I can on Dr. Williams' comments. Yes, the Bureau of Engineering does intend to go back to the community. We did have the switch of the project team, and therefore, we did not get a chance to go back to the community to continue to talk about some of the issues that Dr. Williams and the other community members had regarding the paleontological and cultural resources. We did capture all of the information that was relayed to us in last year's meetings. We do intend to address all of it. However, we wanted to get our new team on board and started. Some of the information that was requested in Dr. Williams' written public comment, we do have, and we're happy to share that information. And also, regarding the funding for the State Route 710, we do intend to have federal funding. So it would not be Measure R. Other than that, I just wanted to, I guess, say that we will be going back to the community to address a lot of these items, and happy to work with them in CD14. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lau. Colleagues, do we have questions or comments? Commissioner Closa?
I didn't have a comment, but I guess I'll just go ahead and say that, you know, it sounds like from Dr. Williams's concerns that this task order will actually, to Shirley's point, help bring back a new team to work with the community in terms of getting them to understand where it is in the process. So I think that, you know, I'm comfortable moving forward with it because I think it actually will meet and address some of the concerns that were raised today as far as outreach. And then just separately, I just wanted to say it's really nice to hear from you again, Dr. Williams. I know we haven't heard from you in a few months, but we're really glad that you're back, so welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner Closa. Vice President Garcia, any questions or comments?
Sure. Thank you, President Good. I also do want to say hello, Dr. Williams. It was nice to hear from you, and thank you for always keeping us on check. It's what, you know, public comment is for, so we appreciate you being here, and I'm personally glad to see that you are still on it. I don't have any questions regarding this, but the only thing I would appreciate to know, just like the community would want to know, when is this going to start, and how long will the construction process or the construction will take to be finished?
So we do have right-of-way acquisition, and so a lot of the timeline is dependent on the right-of-way acquisition. There are 13 parcels, so until we move a little further along, I think I don't really have a solid date, so I'd hate to, you know, give the community misinformation. So I do, you know, right-of-way acquisition and right-of-way I guess a lot of the activities associated with the acquisition is part of this task order. So once we get started and we move along with that phase, then I'm happy to give a better timeline on when construction can start. So without the right-of-way being acquired, we will not be able to start the construction.
Understood. Thank you for that explanation. That's all for me.
Thank you, Vice President Garcia. Commissioner Davis. Any questions?
Yes, Ms. Lau, I wanted to find out in terms of the funding for this project, is it a federally funded project or is it just local funds?
It is a federally funded project, yes.
Okay, and then did I understand you to say that we've increased in terms of the disadvantaged business inclusion on this particular project, even though we were going to have some diversity anyway? We certainly superseded the expectations of staff. Is that pretty accurate?
Yes, that is correct. This new team went to 54.81%, which is higher than the previous team, which was only at 37%.
Okay, great. And you anticipate that this project, according to the plans of staff, we anticipate that this project will be completed when?
Currently, because of also the previous Vice President Garcia's question on the right-of-way acquisition.
Sure.
Yeah, it's a little bit hard for me to estimate when, because sometimes the right-of-way acquisition could be very quick or it could be very long.
Sure.
There are 13 parcels. Mm-hmm. So right now we're at the phase where we're entering, we have the appraisals and we will be talking to all the parcel owners on this additional 20 feet.
Okay.
So if that goes well, we hope that we could let's just say if that takes another 6 months to wrap up, we would be able to go to construction late 2021.
Got it.
So,
Okay, thank you.
assuming all goes well on the right of way.
Got it. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Mr. President.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Davis. Commissioner Villegas, any questions or comments?
No, I appreciate Shirley's report. I'm just hoping that Dr. Williams is suffice with her response.
Thank you. Ms. Lau, thank you for the excellent presentation. To be sure, this really seems like a pretty exciting project, really exciting project. One question I do have, so on the parcel acquisition, are those, what type of parcels are we talking about there?
This portion is actually on the hillside. So there are houses on the top of the hillside, and they go not on Soto Street, but their entrance is on another side street. And so their property comes actually all the way down to where the Soto Street is. So we need to acquire, in order to widen the roadway, we need to move 20 feet into the hillside. And so once we do that, then we could retain the hillside and widen the street. And so it's actually hillside property. It's like the backyard of the houses on the very top.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. So conceivably, as part of this task, they'll be having conversations with these folks, and it could either be acquisition or, I mean, most likely it would be like easement acquisition.
Correct.
Right.
And they will, the consultant will be working with the Bureau of Engineering right-of-way group, real estate group, to do this. Yes.
Okay. All right. I have no further questions. Thank you, Ms. Lau. So with that, any objections, or actually, do I have a second to move this item forward forthwith?
Second.
Thank you,
Commissioner, this is Ted. I believe, and Dr. Campos can kind of weigh in as well, that the approval of this would be subject to the mayor's cost containment direction.
Can you repeat that, Ted, or Mr. Jordan?
No, that's okay. I think the approval is subject to the mayor's office approval as well, under the cost containment memo.
Yes, this would be subject. That's exactly right. Thank you. I appreciate that, and it would be. So I will seek then a second on approval of this item, subject to the mayor's approval under the cost containment memo.
Okay.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Davis. Any objections, Commissioner Colosa?
No objections, thank you.
Any objections, Vice President Garcia?
No objections.
Commissioner Villegas?
No objections.
All right, hearing no objections, we will move this item forthwith, or be adopted forthwith, subject to mayor's approval under the cost containment memo. Thank you, Mr. Jordan. And thank you very much, Ms. Lau. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, President Good.
Thank y'all.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you.
All right, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, this takes us to our third item in Council Districts 3, 4, and 9. This item was continued from Tuesday, July 21, 2020. Recommending the board, 1, find that the tree removal, 1, classifies as operation, repair, maintenance, or minor alteration of existing street, sidewalk, and gutter involving negligible or no expansion of use beyond that previously existing, and does not involve the removal of a scenic resource. 2, that the action is exempt under Article 3, Section 1, Class 1, Category 3, Existing Facilities, Sidewalk Repair and Maintenance of the City of Los Angeles Environmental Quality Act guidelines from 2002, and 3, that none of the exceptions to the use of a categorical exemption is set forth in Section 15300.2 of the state CEQA guidelines apply, and 2, review and approve this tree removal permit request for the removal of 14 street trees, which includes 9 camphor and 5 Red River trees for the reconstruction of an off-grade sidewalk and curb ramp installation. Tree replacements are required. Dr. Campos, I do believe we have public comments on this item. Why don't we go ahead and take those calls?
Thank you, President Good. We do have one caller, Dr. Riley. Dr. Riley, I will go ahead and unmute your microphone at this time. Your microphone has been unmuted, Dr. Riley, I apologize. You will be given 2 minutes to speak on this item.
Dr. Riley, if I could ask, and it's simply because we are in our pandemic Zoom world, if you can just take your time and hold the phone close, because I want to make sure we all hear your comments.
Thank you. I am asking for a continuation of this hearing today so that the neighbors on this street can have time to create options for the board to consider. At the last meeting on Tuesday, it was stated there was one special request to repair the sidewalks, which certainly need repair. The person stated they had a mobility disability. The person did not have a mobility disability, and his letter stating that he does not have a mobility disability is in the public comment section. I request a continuation at least until Tuesday, August 11th, so that I can further confer with the city arborist, Hector Banuelos, with whom I have been discussing this issue. Mr. Banuelos said this tree is in fair condition. I possibly will, if Mr. Banuelos feels it's in good condition, we may ask a arborist, private arborist, to confirm that. I am available for any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Riley. Tim Tyson is our representative here today. Tim, would you like to add to the presentation from Tuesday?
I would. Thank you, President Good, Commissioners, City Attorney, Executive Officer, and Bureau Representatives. I received Mr. Riley's emails and forwarded them to the board. We do not feel there's a reason to continue the item. However, we want to talk about special instructions at the end of my presentation that will fit into Mr. Riley's needs. I'm going to kind of go over a little bit of what this is all about. I do want to remind everybody that the Bureau of Engineering has done 116 miles of sidewalk. We've retained 4,337 trees and removed 695 to do that 116 miles of sidewalk. We strive in every effort to save trees and not remove them, but they must be viable trees. They must be healthy. And due to the condition, the size, and or the species, that's why these 14 trees have been asked for removal permits. I do want to remind the board that there are 80 trees involved in these 3 locations, of which 14 need to be removed. Michael Owens of the Council District 3, Nikki Azari, Council District 4, and Bryce Rosario, Council District 9, were all informed of the tree removal request on December 16, 2019. As well as the notice of the proposed tree removals were physically posted on the trees November 18, 2019. Proposed tree removals were included in the Bureau of Street Services tree removal notification system, and the Community Forest Advisory Committee and Department of Neighborhood Empowerment were also notified. We have 3 different sites. One is on Lopez Street, one is on Observatory Avenue, and one is on Orchard Street Avenue. And there's a corner where on Lopez Street that is on Topanga Canyon Boulevard. So we have a corner lot there that has the Red River gum eucalyptus trees. The size of the Red River gum eucalyptus trees, which there are 5, are very large. These trees are past their maturity. They're over mature. They're as large as the parkway is in size of diameter of the trunk of the tree at the base. Eucalyptus trees are not a good candidate for root pruning. And if you look at the trees in the photos, you can see one of the trees has a sulphurous mushroom growing out of the base at 21901 Lopez. The other ones, some of the curbs are okay, some of the curbs are not okay, some are next to driveway aprons. We don't consider one-side root pruning on these trees viable. It creates unstable trees. Some of these trees would have to be root pruned on 2 sides. So that's why these eucalyptus trees, they're over mature, they're senescent, they've reached their middle age, and they're in the declining end of their life. This camphor trees that are on Observatory Avenue, which there are 4, and that is where Mr. Riley lives. That's where the actual access request originated from. 2 of the trees there have lifted the sidewalk up 2.5 to 3 feet. That means they're enormous size roots. And the camphor trees there are in fair condition, 2 of them, and the other 2 are poor to fair. So root pruning of camphor trees is really, really hard on camphor trees, and the amount and size of roots that would have to be root pruned on these trees is highly not recommended. Also, the curbs and the driveway aprons are next to the trees as well, which would mean 2-sided root pruning on some of them. The camphor trees on Orchard Avenue, 5 of them, are in really bad shape. I think that you have photos of these trees in your package, and you can see some of the trees have what we call a probe sticking in them. That probe is 5 feet tall, 5 feet long. You see a foot of the probe sticking out from under the tree. That means 4 foot. That thing goes all the way underneath that tree. There's nothing live under there. It's all decayed. These trees are in bad shape. They're not viable trees to even save if we weren't doing the sidewalks. They're actually in a declining state with severe decay. So that is why these trees are all recommended for removal, and the other, I guess it would be 76 trees in the program here are in good enough shape. They're smaller trees, they're healthier, they're viable, root pruning can be done, and we want to remind the board that we do root pruning where in best management practices, root pruning would not be done. We do that because we only do one-sided root pruning, and we have to make sure the trees are viable and have good roots running laterally in the parkway so that it will not fall over. These trees, not only would they fall over, but they will die. And so that's why we recommended these for removal. And for Mr. Riley, I did receive Mr. George Figueroa's email, and I received Mr. Riley's, and he's stating that Anna, that's a hard one to pronounce, Doroshian, owner at 2221 Observatory, and Mr. Riley at 2227 Observatory would like to get an arborist to come in and look at the trees, and we feel that if the arborist is given the same parameters that we look at, curbs, sidewalks, and the driveway aprons, they will come up with the same conclusion. So that's if they're a professional arborist. We would like to today have the permit approved for removal of all 14 trees with a special instruction from you, President Good, that I will work with Commissioner Villegas and Mr. Riley give them 4 weeks to produce a tree report that we could talk with Mr. Riley about and see what their arborist comes up with. And we're more than happy to do that, but we do not want this to be continued any longer. The permit would be issued for all trees. We will hold off on those 4 trees to be removed until this tree report can be presented to us and give us some time to meet with Mr. King and his arborist and have Commissioner Villegas be the lead on this. I will lead it, but she will be the one that we work with.
All right, thank you, Mr. Tyson. And your recommendation taken under advisement. Let's start with Commissioner Villegas. Any questions or comments?
Thank you, and I appreciate Mr. Tyson's report. I think just to put some further clarity on this, we should also just put a timeline, holding off the tree removals maybe for 30 days until we do that independent review of an arborist and to look for alternatives. Is that fine by you, Mr. Tyson?
Are we stating, Commissioner, that we would hold off on all of these removals?
No, just hold off on the ones that we need to get an independent review.
Yes, I'm perfectly fine with 30 days for those 4 trees. The road is not very wide, so therefore bump outs are not feasible, and you can't ramp over the roots because they're so large. So I'm more than happy to receive an arborist report from Mr. Riley and wait 30 days for these 4 trees, but also approve them today.
Thank you for that clarification. Thanks. I'm fine, President Good.
Thank you, Commissioner.
This is Ted. I'm sorry to interject. So just for the record, the report from Street Services talks about there being 4 trees on Observatory, 2 located at 2217 and 2 located at 2221. The trees that are located at 2217, they actually had consent from the property owner. It's part of your packet at transmittal number 5. You did not have a similar consent for the removal for the trees located at 2221. So I think for the record we should be clear as to which trees you're talking about on Observatory. All 4? The 2 located at 2221?
Actually, you're absolutely correct. He's the owner at 2227, which doesn't have any trees, and I was thinking 2217. Okay, so really be 2221 because we do have a authorization for the removal of the ones at 2221.
Yeah, what I'm seeing is that Dr. Riley has very specifically requested an accommodation relative to, strictly 2221 Observatory.
Okay.
And for clarification, Mr. Tyson, you said that 2 of the trees on Observatory had severely uplifted sidewalks. Is 2221, are those 2 the ones with the uplifted sidewalks or no? Putting aside the issue of the health of the trees.
I believe that 2221 is the one that has the severe disruption.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, I looked them all up just online through, Google. It appeared that that one also had the obstruction, so I concur with Mr. Tyson.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Villegas. Vice President Garcia, any questions or comments?
Thank you, President Good. No, I support the idea of moving forward with all the other ones, except for the one that we are in question. I don't think the other one should be held behind for this one time that's nowhere near in that area. So that's just my what I feel that we should do.
Okay. Thank you, Vice President Garcia. Commissioner Colosa. Are you frozen?
Thank you, President Good. I think I pushed mute and unmute at the same time. I just had a quick clarification for Mr. Jordan, for our city attorney, and thanks, by the way, to Mr. Tyson for his presentation and coming forward with a recommendation already on how to kind of move this all forward, since I know how much work you all put in to get to this phase in doing these sidewalk repairs. But Mr. Jordan, is there any legal obligation that we have in terms of when these requests are submitted for the sidewalk repair. I was just reading through the public comment that Mr. Riley had submitted, and I know that one of the items mentioned in his email was that originally a tenant of his had submitted an access request a few years ago, but essentially sounded like they were saying that, you know, nobody with mobility or disability issues lived specifically in this part of Observatory anymore. Does that matter in terms of what our legal obligation is for the sidewalk repair program? And I ask that more for my awareness because I know this is tied to metrics that we have since it's, you know, tied to some litigation.
That's a good question. So I took a look at the communication. My opinion, this project should still be considered ADA access request, and therefore it's given very high priority under the sidewalk repair program pursuant to the city's settlement agreement.
Okay.
The communication that we received indicated that there in fact was another individual who does have a mobility disability who was going to submit a request for this location, but did not when they were told that a request had already been submitted. Under the sidewalk repair program, I mean, these requests are done sort of, my understanding is on a first come, first served basis. We don't necessarily say, well, this had 2 requests instead of 1, so therefore it has higher priority. I think the record that they try to create here has no real bearing on the priority and the necessity to undertake this repair pursuant to the city settlement agreement.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Mr. Jordan. I just wanted to make that clear as well, and that's helpful. I think just to state for the record, and also hopefully that's helpful for Mr. Riley as well in terms of understanding what the city's requirements are as it relates to the American Disabilities Act, even though we appreciate you doing that research and background with your former tenant. I don't have any other questions, but I support the recommendations from my colleagues to move this forward, knowing that the 2 trees held at Mr. Riley's property are going to be subject to additional review by his arborist. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Colosa. President Pro Tem Davis, any questions or comments?
Just Mr. Tyson, I wanted clarification. You mentioned in your early part of the report that there were some trees that were in fair condition. Are these condition trees that are fair among those that are going out to be evaluated or reevaluated by Dr. Riley's arborist?
Yes, they are, Dr. Davis. These are the 2 trees that are in fair condition, and they're in fair condition. They've grown well over the years. They've raised the sidewalks up 2 to 3 feet.
I see.
Actually, I was told 4 feet, the hood of a car. If you span a straight line over across, I'd say more like 3 feet, which is still very high. They're just, it's unfortunate. Trees like this, the root pruning of the trees is too great to do to the trees.
And these are gum trees, red gum trees, or are these the camphors?
These are the campers, Dr. Davis.
And so they are similar to the ficus trees that we had a lot of problem with as well?
Well, the roots are similar in some ways, yes, but they're not similar as far as ficus trees or rubber trees, and camphor trees are just like real soft wood trees.
I see. Okay. All right.
And if I may say, we really want we want this all approved today if we can, and we will hold off on the 2 trees at at the observatory address for Mr. King.
Sure.
We don't want to have to come back to board. If he can come up with some sort of idea that is feasible,
sure,
then the trees won't be removed. But we would like to have all approved today so we don't have to come back to board at the end of 30 days. If nothing else can be found, then the trees would be removed and all the sidewalks would be fixed, and all the trees are going to be replaced 2 to 1 in the neighborhoods that the trees are being removed.
Understood. Thank you.
All right, thank you, President Pro Tem Davis. Just adding on Mr. Davis's question, just to reiterate, so Mr. Tyson, they are in fair condition, the trees at 2221 Observatory Lane, or Avenue, excuse me. are in fair condition. However, camphor trees, if pruned to the degree that would be necessary to somehow ameliorate the problem with the raised sidewalk, that would actually undermine their health to a degree that would render their fair health pointless.
That's absolutely correct, President Good. They would just, you open up, when you open up great big wounds like that, I just got done looking at some trees where fruiting bodies went into the, diseases get right in because they're open wounds of such large sizes, and spores come up in the wind, and bacteria can get in. Anyway, camphor trees are a very delicate tree. They don't like roots being root pruned at all. They don't like the tree crown being trimmed. They're a delicate species. And you're absolutely correct that root pruning that it would take to put that sidewalk back down to grade level with the slope of 2% side or 5% to the side and 2% maximum running down the sidewalk, basically at grade, would damage those trees beyond repair.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tyson, and thank you for the presentation, and thank you for your attention to the questions, both of the public and of my colleagues. Thank you also, Dr. Riley, for joining us again today. So, colleagues, I do feel like there's a couple of important points to make, and for the public, which is a reminder, that these trees and their ultimate removal recommendation, there was a public notice posted in November of 2019. I think November 18th, to be exact.
That's correct, President Good.
Now, what I gather from Dr. Riley's email is that Dr. Riley actually lives on that street, as does Miss Dorjeton. Excuse me for any mispronunciations I'm making there. I point this out, and I do think it's important that I think it's critical that we're attaching this level of deliberation to trees, because as we all know, they're superheroes and they merit this level of attention. But I do want to reiterate, or I just want to point out again, there has been months, and granted, these are months in which we've been dealing with a pandemic and the world turned upside down. However, months in which additional arborist opinion could have been sought, secured, and procured. And that is not lost, certainly on me. I would also stress, that whatever this sort of mishigas was around the ADA claim, that wasn't an ADA claim, or that was a false ADA claim, I am highly uncomfortable with. There's a reason, as Commissioner Colosa has pointed out, there's a reason for that program. And that is accessibility and the need of disabled folks to be able to move. The disingenuousness, however well-intended, of that request in that program, I find just inappropriate. And I want to actually flag, I find it worse than inappropriate. It's not something I will stomach, and I want to make sure that everyone's cognizant of that, including Dr. Riley, although I appreciate you actually pointing out that play by whoever. All that said, I am not inclined to continue this item. There's a lot of work to be done, and there's a lot of reason to move forward with these trees. I am, however, persuaded and agree with Mr. Tyson and our colleagues that there's there's nothing particularly lost in affording you, Dr. Riley, and your neighbor, Ms. Doziertown, the opportunity to bring in an additional arborist. And so I would like to move forward with yours and Commissioner Villegas' recommendation that we, and I will make the motion that we move this item forward with explicit direction that the Bureau of Street Service, or excuse me, Streets LA, hold for 30 days on removing strictly the 2 trees at 2221 Observatory Avenue, affording more than adequate time for Dr. Riley and company to bring in their arborist, and for Mr. Tyson and Streets LA to work through Commissioner Villegas in assuring the best outcome from that process, if in fact those trees are found by an outside party to be healthy. Then I put it in Commissioner Villegas' hands to navigate that process. So do I have a second to my motion to move forward with this item with the direction to Street Services to hold on removing the trees at 2221 Observatory Avenue, the 2 camphor trees at 2221 Observatory Avenue for 30 days?
Second that.
Nope. Dr. Campos?
Before the second, I just wanted to get some clarity, President Good, on the motion that you are proposing to amend this report, and that is to set this as a new condition instructing the Bureau of Street Services Urban Forestry Division to work with Dr. Riley to determine if the 2 camphor trees at 2221 Observatory Avenue can be saved and not removed. The hypothetical question to you is this: if that independent community arborist report comes back with the trees can be saved, then at that point, is the board delegating its discretion to the Chief Urban Forestry Division to make that determination, or how will that pan out? Because if the arborist tree comes back with, or the arborist report comes back with, the trees cannot be saved, they need to be removed, then it concurs with the Urban Forestry Division's recommendation. However, if the arborist report comes back with these trees are healthy, they can be saved, then at that point is the instruction or the condition to save those trees and allow the Urban Forestry Division to make that determination.
The instruction would be, and Mr. Jordan, let me know if this is fair and appropriate, or appropriate, legally appropriate. If the arborist finds that these trees, moving forward with this, Bureau of Streets LA is authorized to remove the trees. The direction is to let them get a third-party arborist to look at it. If it were to come back healthy, I would delegate that authority to Streets LA and Commissioner Villegas, with Commissioner Villegas having the final say on the following, or on the next steps moving forward. Is that?
I'd like to say, Mr. President, and certainly I hear your instructions, but I would like to reflect upon the value of what we have embraced as a Board of Public Works. If in fact there is a conflict with the two, certainly it's certainly something that we will get a decision from our board member who handles that department, who is Villegas. However, I wanted to add that to the extent possible, we've always said we value saving trees when we can. Oftentimes in our work, there are going to be difference of opinion, but I think it's important to know that our value as a Board of Public Works is that if we humanly can, and it makes appropriate sense, that does not threaten public safety, that our value was and is to save trees. I just think it's important to reflect upon that. That's certainly not in violation of any public safety, but I do think that that has been our value in the past.
I would agree, Commissioner Davis. I think that the first continuation of this item from Tuesday, as well as the degree of attention put on this heretofore is reflective of that. I agree with you 100%. I'm also very confident that Commissioner Villegas will employ that that commitment and belief in that value as well.
I agree.
I have a question for Mr. Jordan, like a legal question. In the event that the report comes back that those trees must remain, how is that going to place us in terms of, this safety lawsuit that we've had?
Well, first of all, just to clarify, if you look at the board packet, if you look at your transmittal number 6, you look at the 2 trees at 2221 Observatory Avenue, trees numbered F1 and F2. And the urban forester will correct me if I'm wrong here. I do not believe that what is an issue here is the health of those 2 trees. What is at issue here is whether those 2 trees, trees F1 and F2, can withstand the pruning necessary in order to fix the sidewalk. Those trees could be the healthiest trees in the world. In fact, I'm assuming they are. So tree number F1 is identified in your board report as requiring a 3-sided root prune. So I think the only issue for any arborist is whether that tree can withstand that root pruning or whatever root pruning is necessary to repair the sidewalk. Similar for F2. The tree at F2, tree number F2 at 2221 Observatory Avenue, has among the worst sidewalk disruption of any of the trees before you in this report. That's the one where you'll see in the photograph that's in your report, the sidewalk uplift approaches the height of the hood of the car parked next to the tree. So we're not necessarily asking an arborist to tell us whether that tree is healthy or not. The health of that tree is technically not relevant here. What's relevant is whether the tree can withstand the root pruning necessary to fix the sidewalk. The board's going to take an action. The board will approve the removal of the tree. No further board action is necessary. If you, as the commissioner who's going to be taking a close look at this, within a month's time, feel that some other arborist views that the tree can withstand the pruning necessary to fix the sidewalk, then you're free to bring back to the board a motion for reconsideration. The board can act on that motion or not. The board reconsiders the item, then it'll have to make a whole new decision. But absent that, there's no further board action that will be necessary here. And I would strongly encourage the staff to address this right away so that the property owner, who had a very long period of time in order to have an arborist come out and take a look at this. These trees were posted. They could have done this a long time ago. It doesn't drag the city out any further in an effort to save these trees.
That's really helpful. I really appreciate the context and the way you framed it. We do these things for full transparency, as it is our responsibility. So thank you. And I will work.
I'm sorry if I came across a little harsh.
No, it wasn't. It was very clear. I work closely with Mr. Tyson, and we will reevaluate in 30 days. Thank you.
And thank you, Commissioner Villegas and Mr. Jordan, for that clarification. That's a really crucial point. The sidewalks, that sidewalk must be fixed, and we are obligated under our settlement to do so. So that clarification in terms of what health we're looking for or what the tree can withstand is actually the more appropriate question.
President Good?
Yes, sir.
And that's why I want to stress that they actually hire a tree expert that is an expert in the field, because we do not feel that the report would say anything other than what we are saying right now, because we are tree experts.
Yes, indeed. There's little doubt on our end. Okay, so Dr. Campos and colleagues, I would move again, or is my motion satisfactory here at this point?
If you can repeat that motion, okay, that would be wonderful. I'm still drafting the
Great.
motion.
And listen carefully, Mr. Jordan. So my motion is to move the item forward to authorize the removal of it's 16 trees.
14.
The direction, or additional direction, that Streets LA hold on removing the 2 camphor trees at 2221 Observatory Avenue for 30 days, in which Dr. Riley and company will have the opportunity to bring in a third-party expert arborist to evaluate whether those 2 trees are healthy enough to withstand the pruning necessary to address the conflict with upraised sidewalks adjacent to them.
Okay, that's one part. Then there was the
In the
discussion.
event that those trees are found healthy enough to withstand the requisite pruning to address the conflict with the sidewalk adjacent to them, Commissioner Villegas will have the discretion, working with Streets LA, to either bring alternative action to the board or approve and authorize the removal of the trees. Mr. Jordan, does that comport with our obligations under the law?
Yeah, I'm sorry to clarify. Within that 30 days, the property owner, whoever, will be allowed to bring an expert in. They should provide the expert credentials to the Street Services Bureau so they can evaluate the expert's credentials. If during that time, Commissioner Villegas, who's going to take a very close look at this on behalf of the board, views that there is an alternative presented, then it will be her discretion to bring a motion for reconsideration. For now, there's a whole 30-day hold on the removal of that tree. Commissioner Villegas decides to bring a motion for reconsideration, then it's up to the board to reconsider it or not, take further action. If Commissioner Villegas decides to not bring a motion for reconsideration, then no further action is necessary. The board has already approved the Bureau to remove the trees. You just ask them to put a hold on that removal for 30 days. So no further action is necessary by Commissioner Villegas to allow the trees to be removed. You've approved that. What she could do, if she chose to, frankly, anyone voting for the motion today could, is request that the board reconsider that action in the future. But no further action is necessary. But today's approval gives the Bureau all the approval that it needs to remove the trees, albeit for those 2 trees, a 30-day hold. It's slightly different than what you said.
So instead, Mr. Jordan, this is Fernando Campos, Executive Officer. So instead of delegating that authority to Commissioner Villegas, the outcome would be if in the event that the trees can withhold the root pruning, then instruct the Bureau to return back to this board.
No.
No.
I do not expect to see the Bureau back unless and until any one commissioner brings a motion for reconsideration.
Right.
His action is, for all intents and purposes, final.
Final.
Right. So actually, it's simpler than what I gave you, which is a move to approve the removal of the 16 trees with the direction that Streets LA will hold on removing the 2 trees, the 2 camphor trees at 2221 Observatory Avenue for 30 days. If Commissioner Villegas moves for reconsideration of the removal of those trees, the board will consider that action. Otherwise, this is final.
Isn't it good? I'm very sorry I want to add just a little clarification. This is not just the sidewalk. This is the broken curbs, the sidewalks, right, and the driveways.
Right. So, but I think that per Mr. Jordan, I think that was very helpful. We don't actually need to get into those details. That will be, the action is to authorize the removal. If Commissioner Villegas, working in consultation with Streets LA, as well as the community member, decides to move for a reconsideration of that action within the next 30 days, then the board will consider that.
Yes.
That's a lot of noodling in the brain.
Good?
Sorry.
All right.
I believe I'm clear. Yes.
All right. Any further questions or comments, Commissioner Villegas?
Just a technicality, it's 14 trees, not 16.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. That is that? Yeah, you're right. Thank you. Okay. Any questions or comments or objections? Excuse me, President Pro Tem Davis.
None. I'm on board.
Okay. And Commissioner Colosa?
None, thank you.
Okay. And Vice President Garcia, any objections?
No, none either, and I second your motion.
Thank you. Okay. Did I have another second that I missed, or no?
I had Commissioner Villegas, but...
Got it. Thank you. So seconded by Vice President Garcia and Commissioner Villegas. Hearing no objections, we will, this item is approved forthwith with the attendant direction. All right. Thank you, Dr. Riley. Thank you, colleagues, for your patience. And Commissioner Villegas for your readiness for leadership. All right, colleagues, let's move on to item number 4. This is all council districts. This is an authority for expenditure for Data Trace Information Services, LLC, from the Bureau of Engineering. Bureau of Engineering and Office of Accounting are requesting board approval and execution of an authority for expenditure in the amount of $35,000 for encumbrance for land development and geographic information system division annual blanket authority in fiscal year 2021 to pay for monthly billings for online title plant services as needed by the Bureau of Engineering for access to records of deeds and ownership for the City of Los Angeles as required by Los Angeles Administrative Code, Section 22.326 for the period ending June 30, 2021. Our representative today is SM Amaragi. Hello, SM.
Good afternoon, President. Good afternoon, Commissioners, Mr. Jordan and Dr. Campbell and everyone. If I brief you today, very quickly about this item, the Bureau of Engineering, Land Records Section, and the GIS and Mapping Division are responsible for tracking the land ownership, deeds, and legal descriptions across the city per the Los Angeles Administrative Code. That's why we are using the services of the Data Trace, who provides these title searches for us. A good example for that is what my colleague, Ms. Shirley Lau, mentioned about the acquisition of the right-of-way. In a case like that, we have to determine who are the legal owners of these properties and do a title search for that as an example. So this was really a good example of using these services. And we get requests, these requests for title search from different divisions in the Bureau as well as other departments. So they want to know the dimensions of the property, for example, the ownership, trail of ownership for that property. That's why the Bureau of Engineering is requesting this amount. for the next fiscal year to cover all the searches that we may use during the next fiscal year. And with that, I'll conclude my presentation, and I will be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, sir. Any questions or comments, colleagues? We'll start with you, Commissioner Colosa.
No questions or comments for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Vice President Garcia?
Sure. Thank you, President Good. Assam, question, is this something we do every year?
Yes, that's something we do every year. And the Bureau of Engineering inherited that process from the city clerk's office back in 2010. So that's an ongoing service, and it's monthly billing, so we can't estimate how much we're going to use it every month, but that's our estimate for the whole year.
And is it the same amount every year, or has it increased this year?
I mean, we saw an increase in the last few years, but that we calculated the average, and this should cover us for the next fiscal year.
Understood. Thank you. Thank you for the clarification. That's all, President.
Thanks, Vice President Garcia. Commissioner Villegas, any questions?
I'm good, thank you.
President Pro Tem Davis, any questions?
No questions for me.
All right. As a note, given that this is less than $100,000, this would not be subject to the mayor's cost containment provisions. Do I have any objections to my motion to move this forthwith?
Second.
With President Pro Tem Davis's second, Vice President Garcia?
No objections.
Commissioner Villegas?
No objections, thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Colosa?
No objections. Thank you.
All right. Hearing no objections, this item is approved forthwith. Thank you, Essam.
Thank you, President, and thank you, Commissioners.
You have a great weekend.
You too.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to our final item of the day and of the week. Colleagues, friends, and neighbors, this is Council Districts 1, 4, and 14. This is specifications submitted for board adoption and authorization to advertise for the invitation of bids. High Voltage Conversion Fed Program Unit 2, work order number L2049450, estimate $1,465,000, bid receipt date to be September 1, 2020. No representative on this item since it's an administrative item. Is there a second to my motion to adopt item number 5 forthwith?
Second.
I'll second.
All right. Any objections, Commissioner Villegas?
No objections, thanks.
Vice President Garcia?
No objections.
Okay. So hearing no objections, so moved, and this item is approved forthwith. So, Dr. Campos, does that clear the desk?
Yes, it does.
All right. So thank you. This meeting is therefore adjourned. Everyone have a great weekend. Our management team meeting is going to be canceled for today, and we will most likely move it, have one again next Friday.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Have great weekends.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye. Good night. Goodbye, everybody.
Hi, Al. Thank you, Dr. Campos.
Good night, Davis.
Yeah, good night.